Imagine stepping into a hotel expecting comfort and luxury, only to realize you've walked straight into a death trap. Meet Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as H. Holmes, a brilliant conman, an affluent pharmacist, and America's first documented serial killer. With a smile as polished as his lies, Holmes built his empire on deception, fraud, and murder. But his true masterpiece? A three-story labyrinth of horror disguised as a hotel, a place that would become known as the Murder Castle. Hidden within its walls were soundproof rooms, secret passageways, trapdoors, and a basement designed for the most sinister of purposes. Guests checked in, but many never checked out. What drove this man to transform his wealth into a killing machine? How did he manipulate, murder, and evade justice for so long? And just how many souls were lost within his twisted corridors? Tonight, we step inside the mind of H. Holmes and unravel the chilling secrets of the Murder Castle. Welcome to the darkest chapter in Chicago's history. Can you be the hero this tiny channel deserves? You can save this channel by liking the video and subscribing. Holmes's parents were devout Methodists and demanded total obedience from him. She was described as a cold and distant individual who used religion as a daily guide for parenting. His alcoholic father followed a strict disciplinarian approach. His parents were both physically and mentally abusive towards him. The harsh disciplinary tactics included prolonged isolation and even food deprivation. Furthermore, his father reportedly held kerosene-soaked rags over Holmes and the other children's mouths to quiet them when they cried. During these instances of abuse by his father, Holmes found refuge in the forest near his home. It was in the forest that he began dissecting animals and developing his deviant fascination with things, both dead and alive. According to Holmes himself, a group of older boys once forced him into a doctor's office and made him stand face to face with a human skeleton. While most children would be terrified, Holmes claimed this experience actually erased his fear of death, and instead sparked a lifelong obsession. He found woodland creatures near his childhood home and performed dissections on them in order to explore their biology. Initially dissecting reptiles, he later moved on to rabbits and dogs. This not only provided Holmes with flesh-cutting skills at a young age, but also acted as a psychological facilitator for his later obsession with human anatomy. Holmes's morbid curiosity may have led to him killing his childhood friend at the age of 11. Holmes had an older friend named Tom. While exploring an abandoned home together, Holmes recalls witnessing Tom die by falling off a landing. However, there is speculation that Holmes was standing close enough behind Tom that he may have intentionally pushed him. In medical school, he began to personally procure cadavers to study, dissect, and use in his own research. He also began robbing graves and morgues and sold the cadavers to medical schools, or utilized them to swindle insurance companies. Holmes conned insurance companies by creating pseudonyms for himself and then naming himself as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy he took out on a fictitious individual. To complete his ruse, he used a cadaver that he had disfigured to render it unrecognizable. During this time, Holmes ignored his wife and son, but it was not until he received nearly $12,500 on a single life insurance scam that he abandoned them completely. After graduating from the University of Michigan's medical school in 1884, he settled in Chicago in 1886, where he changed his name to Dr. Henry Howard Holmes to escape past scams and begin a new life. Being a doctor was the perfect facade for Holmes, as it gave him the access, tools, and resources he needed to continue killing. Holmes found work at a well-respected drugstore in Englewood, Chicago. The pharmacy was owned by Dr. Holton and his wife, Elizabeth. By the time Holmes arrived, Dr. Holton was already really sick and his wife Elizabeth took over the business. Holmes, with his natural charm and polished medical background, quickly gained her trust. Not long after hiring him, after Dr. Holton died, Holmes bought the store from the widow but was in debt. After he didn't pay his monthly mortgage, the wife sought legal action against him, but she mysteriously disappeared. Holmes told people that she had moved to California, but there were no records of her relocation. Some believe he murdered her to take over the pharmacy. Regardless of how it happened, Holmes soon acquired the business, either through a shady transaction or by simply taking control after she was gone. With the pharmacy bringing in steady cash flow, he purchased the lot across the pharmacy and immediately began planning his greatest and most sinister creation, a three-story building that would become infamous as the Murder Castle. Holmes's new building was deceptive from the start. He told outsiders it would serve as a hotel and retail space, but in reality, Holmes designed the building as a maze of horrors, specifically crafted to trap, kill, and dispose of victims. To keep his twisted design secret, Holmes constantly hired and fired workers, ensuring that no single person knew the full layout. Blueprints were inconsistent, and many rooms were added or removed on a whim. He even refused to pay contractors, forcing them to abandon projects so he could hire new ones. Some of the most terrifying features of the Murder Castle were soundproof and airtight rooms. Many rooms were completely sealed off, preventing victims from escaping or calling for help. Some had gas pipes installed, allowing Holmes to asphyxiate guests at will. Next, he made secret passages and trapdoors. There will be random hidden doors, false walls, and staircases leading to nowhere built throughout the hotel. His intention for making this was so he could easily sneak up on victims. One of the most disturbing features was a large, soundproof bank vault installed in the second-floor office. Holmes would lock victims inside and slowly suffocate them, sometimes leaving them to die over hours or even days. Additionally, he had rooms with trapdoors that dropped directly into a chute, sending bodies sliding straight down into the basement. The basement functioned as Holmes's lab, complete with a crematorium, acid vats, and dissection tables. Some victims were skinned, dissected, or stripped for skeletons. Holmes later sold them to medical schools. Here are some notable murders out of his 27 convicted murders. Holmes's mistress, 31-year-old Julia Smythe, and her husband moved into Holmes' building and began working at his pharmacy's jewelry counter. After her husband found out about the affair, he quit his job and moved away, leaving Smythe and their 5-year-old daughter Pearl Connor behind. Smythe gained custody of Pearl and remained at the hotel, continuing her relationship with Holmes. Julia and Pearl both disappeared on Christmas Eve of 1891. Holmes initially claimed that Julia had left unexpectedly to visit her dying sister, but then changed his story and said that she left to be with her former husband. Ultimately, Holmes later claimed that Julia had died during an abortion. A partial skeleton, possibly of a child around Pearl's age, was found when excavating Holmes's cellar. His second victim was 23-year-old Emmeline Sigrand, who worked for Holmes for 6 months. Holmes reportedly hired Sigrand as a secretary due to her connection to a doctor who created a vaccine that cured alcoholism. Those who saw Sigrand in the weeks before her disappearance noted that she appeared to have lost interest in Holmes and their relationship. Sigrand was last seen in December 1892. Her parents were informed that she had left to marry a man. His next victim was 24-year-old actress Wilhelmina Minnie Williams. Holmes offered her a job at the hotel as his personal stenographer, and she accepted. Holmes persuaded Williams to transfer the deed to her property in Fort Worth, Texas, to a man named Alexander Bond, who was an alias of Holmes. In April 1893, Williams transferred the deed, with Holmes serving as the notary. In the following month, Holmes and Williams presented themselves as husband and wife. Minnie's younger sister, 18-year-old Anna, came to visit and wrote to her aunt that she planned to accompany Holmes to Europe. In it, she signed off with the message, "Brother Holmes says you need never trouble any more about me, financially or otherwise. He and his sister will see me. I hope our hard days are over." Afterward, neither Minnie nor Nanny were ever seen alive, and Holmes would subsequently use Minnie's name in future scams. Holmes claimed to have murdered 200 victims, but he was convicted of 27 murders. Holmes's murder spree finally ended when he was arrested in Boston on November 17, 1894. He was held on an outstanding warrant for horse theft in Texas. In July 1895, Chicago police and reporters began investigating Holmes after discovering 2 bodies in his murder castle. In October 1895, Holmes was put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Petezel and was found guilty and sentenced to death. By then, it was evident Holmes had also murdered the 3 missing Petezel children. Following his conviction, Holmes confessed to 27 murders in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto, and 6 attempted murders. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at Moyamensing Prison. Until the moment of his death, Holmes remained calm and amiable, showing very few signs of fear, anxiety, or depression. Despite this, he asked for his coffin to be contained in concrete and buried 10 feet deep because he was concerned grave robbers would steal his body and use it for dissection. Holmes's neck did not break. He instead strangled to death slowly, twitching for over 15 minutes before being pronounced dead. Upon his execution, Holmes's body was buried in an unmarked grave. The castle itself was damaged by a fire in August 1895. Two men were seen entering the back of the building at 9 p.m. About half an hour later, they were seen exiting the building and rapidly running away. After several explosions, the castle went up in flames. Investigators found a half-empty gas can underneath the back steps of the building. The site is currently occupied by the Englewood branch of the United States Postal Service.